Walking for Santiago or walking to Santiago? A short while back, my cousin and I set off on a walk to Santiago de Compostela. The walk is known as the Camino Inglés. It was the second pilgrimage walk that he and I had undertaken. Simon, who in reality I've always seen as my brother and not my cousin, makes the perfect walking partner. We know how to avoid the tender points, we have such a rich shared history and so many common interests. We were both raised to be open-minded, meaning that even though our viewpoints have diverged in some ways, we can generally find a consensus on anything. In 2018, we'd plunged into the lush hills of the Scottish borders, following St Cuthbert's Way. We chose this walk because it started in Melrose, the town that he and I had been schooled in, had watched and played rugby in, and that our parents had lived and died in. It was a fitting homage to our Scottish roots. The walk is essentially the brainchild of the local councils along the way. Whether St Cuthbert's hallowed feet ever followed that path, or whether his body ever rested in St Cuthbert's cave, as monks fled the Vikings with his earthly remains, well, that's lost in the sands of time. It made for an excellent and beautiful walk, the denouement of which was our arrival at Holy Island. This stunning, weather-beaten little corner of our fair isles delivered everything that was required. Beauty, nature, peace, and tranquility in spades. My short time there was restorative. I'd recommend this healing place to anybody looking for a time out. So, to 2022. We had decided that the walk should take place yearly, but dramatic work change made it more difficult for my cousin to have some time off. Shortly after that, the world was plunged into pain and uncertainty. We targeted June 2022 to go on a walk in Spain. Spain's a country that's really close to my cousin's heart, and I had long considered the possibility that I might want to walk the main Camino Francés. It seemed like the perfect way to introduce myself to Camino walking. Now let's be clear here. The distances can be challenging, 35 kilometres in one day. But we are fair weather walkers in that we have our main bags ferried from accommodation to accommodation. We walk with the day pack, and at night all the luxuries await in our pre-booked rooms. Is that the sound of the wife of Bath turning in her grave? Even with these controlled and homogenised elements, it was still a challenging adventure. We flew to A Coruña in the northwest of Spain and took a bus to Ferrol. It was the custom of pilgrims to walk from all points north and in Ireland, often filtering through Durham Cathedral en route to the south coast, where they would embark for northern Spain. Curiously, for my story, St Cuthbert, his final resting place was Durham Cathedral. I'm not quite sure what to make of that yet. We rested up for an afternoon and set off for our first day's walk of 30 kilometres. The following days were a further 22, 24, 25 and a final 16-kilometre stroll into Santiago. I was told it was 125 kilometres, but my final scroll given to me by the Cathedral de Santiago stated 116 kilometres. I wasn't surprised to discover that the church had taken a cut of this as well. Since the 13th century, the faithful have been trekking this dusty route. To be fair, life has moved on a little. We found ourselves walking through eucalyptus forests, only to emerge into a supermarket car park, or setting off through the Zona Industrial for our day's walk. At one stage, we followed a motorway for a good 10 kilometres, and another afternoon had to pass under a mesh of power lines that filled the sky and a huge humming power station. They say that 70% of the walk is on paved roads. This didn't mean built-up areas, but it wasn't nature either. There were long spells in eucalyptus forests that smelled amazing, but also lots of time walking in between small villages along B-roads. There's plenty of time to ponder the nature of one's existence when undertaking such an endeavour. Not only during the walking, but also we managed our time well to allow us to arrive no later than 3 p.m. each day, so that we could have time to ourselves. It may sound daft at this point to mention that the closer we got to Santiago, the more I started to think about Santiago. It took me a little while to decode in my head the word Santiago. Saint Iago. St. James, of course. Wasn't he the one who was the fisher of men? It was time to Google. A quick check confirmed that he was indeed a fisherman. Brother to John, and get this, cousin to Simon. Wow, all sorts of interesting things there. I didn't mention this to my cousin Simon in case it freaked him out. He didn't want to walk with me anymore. St. James and his head parted company in 44 AD, thanks to King Herod, who seems to have had a proclivity towards violent slaughter. His followers escaped with his body in a rudderless boat, which seems like a careless oversight, to finally fetch up in the north of Spain. Whatever the case may be, his body has been venerated by the faithful at this magnificent building for hundreds of years. Let's just touch into chi field theory for a moment here. You might have strolled into a cathedral or a mosque and felt the awe. Old religious buildings have a vibe about them that one can feel immediately. This is what we call chi field theory. There's an ancient Chinese phrase that says "yi dao qi dao," essentially where the mind goes, the energy follows. A building where people have focused their intentions on one thing for centuries becomes palpable. When we do Zhineng Qigong, we focus on a common chi field between us to tap into the healing abilities therein. It doesn't require a physical place. It's just like tuning into 95.8 FM and listening to the music. You could tune into the Catholic frequency of James, or the chi frequency of Dr. Pang and all the people in that chi field. The choice is yours. The peregrinos streaming from all over Europe 700 years ago knew that the power of this collective thought might be able to heal them or cleanse them in some way. St. James was one of the biggest stars in the firmament. Practically speaking, where else could you get up close and personal with one of Jesus' chosen ones? There was Matthias in Germany, John in Spain, and everybody else was in Rome. Not being funny, but it was a long walk to Rome. A boat ride to Spain and a week's walk. What a bargain. Little wonder James became such a success. Cast your mind back, if you will, to me slogging through the supermarket parking lots, mulling this all over. Don't get me wrong, the eventual arrival in Santiago was beautiful. If I'm honest, I'd half expect to have the streets lined with Spanish folk singing that song from Jesus Christ Superstar. Hosanna, hey, Zanna, Hosanna, hey, Zanna, Hosanna, hey, Zanna. Hey, JC, won't you smile at me? Zanna, hey, Zanna, ho, Superstar. I guess it's not escaped the more attentive reader that the Biggin and I share the same initials, JC. I'm just saying. Anyway, a trickle of pilgrims had, after a few days, become a steady stream. As we arrived in Santiago, this turned into a torrent, disgorging us out into the fantastic square in front of the stunning cathedral, with thousands of other happy arrivals. I couldn't suppress a grin from ear to ear. It's great to have such a clear finishing post, and such a stunning one at that. It became apparent that there was a service at the cathedral. Footsore, we went to our lovely hotel. Later that day, we were unable to gain entry because of an evensong. On the Sunday, more of the same, followed by massive queues and signs declaring the cathedral full to capacity. At this point, the devout would have fought tooth and nail to get into the church. For me, it was dawning that this had not been my pilgrimage at all. When Simon too declared that he wasn't that fussed, that put a tin lid on it. After a little reflection, to see if I felt disappointed to have walked all that way and not had a chance to check in with James himself, I realised there was none. The walk was designed to bring my cousin and I together and offer us a challenge. Being away for any amount of time always gives great pause for thought. It offered me space to question my motives in wanting to do the main Camino. I realise now that nature is my church and that walking is my headspace. I like the challenging aspect of it, and I like feeling healthy. If my spiritual heart lays anywhere, it's in Scotland and the Scottish borders. The path to consciousness may well be through a supermarket car park, or even over a Scottish hill. I haven't found it yet, but I'm aware that the looking is making me very happy. Next, who knows? Perhaps Hadrian's Wall. I'm sure Ms. Sturgeon would appreciate a survey of its standing, as partition can't be far off. Or maybe the Southern Upland Way. Whatever the case, I'll relish walking it with my cousin, or alone, and seeing what comes up. Thanks, St. James, but I'm not sure our paths will cross again.